Mayday, mayday, I'm going in.
The American war film stands out in classic genre for many reasons. Dramatic stakes at their highest, cowardice versus bravery.
Let's go!
Human sacrifice and endurance, bravery coming from tragedy, all reflecting American history. No other film genre does this. The first recorded war film sequence was filmed by a British filmmaker, J. Stuart Blackton, titled Tearing Down the Spanish Flag. The sequence, done in 1898, showed a young American man climbing to the top of a building to take down the flag of an enemy. As films improved and America became a world power, it found itself being engulfed in complicated world politics, and soon a world war, one to end all wars. With the advent of sound, one art form replaced another. Audiences would not only see a war on the screen, they would hear it in all its horror. Universal Pictures, in 1930, made the decision to produce Erich Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, the coming-of-age story of Paul Baumer, a young German schoolboy.
Why should they send us out to fight each other? If we threw away these rifles and these uniforms, you could be my brother, just like Cat and Albert.
The American military community had a negative reaction to the film, as did the Third Reich, which was just coming to power in Germany. On the day of the Pearl Harbor attack, Sergeant York from Warner Brothers was in American theaters. Gary Cooper, in an Oscar performance, portrayed the World War I Medal of Honor winner with Alvin York's blessing.
This away! Hey, tell the rest of them fellas to quit shooting and come on out of there!
Now that America had been attacked, President Roosevelt called on Hollywood to support the war effort.
I ask that the Congress declare that a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
And Hollywood answered the call with the early propaganda films.
Can you imagine us in London?
When you get there, ask me.
How about New York?
Well, there are certain sections of New York, Major, that I wouldn't advise you to try to invade.
These films were designed to raise the American patriotic people to the point where Nazis were psychotic and Japanese, consistently referred to as Japs, were subhuman. By the end of World War II, a phenomenon occurred. The actors, writers, and directors who set their careers aside came home, took off their uniforms, and began making realistic war films, greatly influenced by what they saw and experienced. These films told the American audiences what the propaganda films ignored, that war is horrific, brutal, and a life-lasting experience where often no one side truly wins.
There she goes.
During the post-World War II period, up to Korea, some of the best World War II films were written and produced by veterans who saw the war.
Douse those lights! You want to murder us? Turn off those damn lights!
During the Korean War era, the war film genre was mixed. World War II was still repeated in the dramatic terms of good and evil. But the new Korean War films began to raise controversial military, political, and social issues. With the advent of the Kennedy administration, the bridge to Vietnam was crossed with military and political thrillers concerning world domination.
I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed, but I do say no more than 10 to 20 million killed, top.
And then the American psyche was thrown into a jungle turmoil as a guerrilla war in Vietnam began to be fought with a World War II mentality.
It's pretty hard to talk to anyone about this country till they've come over here and seen it.
The 1969 Warner Brothers film, The Green Berets, has the unique distinction of being the only war film released while the Vietnam War was still being conducted. As long as the war continued and the protests divided the country, Hollywood contradicted what it had done with World War II and Korean War films, produced them while the war was still taking place. After the Vietnam War ended, Hollywood safely entered the war film genre, showing the conflict to be as horrifying and complex as what appeared in print and in the newsrooms. As the controversial Vietnam films appeared, American audiences began to change their attitudes toward the war and the men who fought it.
You're not taking away my weapon.
Yes, I am.
World tensions moved eastward, and the Gulf War erupted with Desert Storm, led by the junior and field-grade officers who had served in Vietnam. As the world entered the 21st century, America went back to the clearer days of World War II, giving the new generation a chance to view a distant war from the vantage of a new century and a new era. America was now a nation worn by clouded victories, as well as the scars of lingering defeats. The war films continued to reflect the history, the controversies, and frustrations in a world that had become smaller and more intense. Shaped by its past experience, America is entering a new and uncharted age. But at the same time, this country is remembering from where it came and the effects of the ultimate price of freedom in a changing and complex world.